This video is brought to you by SoundMoneyCampaign.com. Be part of the solution. Visit SoundMoneyCampaign.com today.
You're listening to an unconventional finance interview with your host, Elijah Johnson. Find us on the web at unconventionalfin.com.
With us today is Bill Murphy from GATA.org, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, and Don Harrold from the Day Trade Show. Thank you guys for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Same here.
All right, so as we all know, gold and silver crashed recently to a low, gold at around $13.25 an ounce and silver at around $22 an ounce. What has caused this price decline in the metals? And I guess we can start with Don.
Well, I think that the issue with gold is that there hadn't been a real sharp daily move like we saw last week for the last decade. Now, there over a week period or over a month period, there are actually moves that were even more significant than this on a percent basis. But I just suspect there's a lot to it that involves what happens when you get something that moves this strong for a decade. And I'm not even ready to say that this is a bear market. I've seen some stuff in the mainstream media that says gold's in a bear market. I don't particularly agree that it's that classic of a bear market. I don't see the kind of capitulation selling. I don't see the kind of fear. In fact, with the people that are stepping up to the plate to buy gold, I don't think gold's really had that big of a swoon, and I don't see it yet. Maybe it will turn into that. With respect to silver, I mean, there are a lot of people who have been saying that silver could retrace back below that 26 level. And just technically, if people look back over time and they look back and they say, well, 26 was so clearly evident as a level of support, I hope people now understand that when something is so clear that everybody sees it, usually it doesn't work out that way. I think it's a lot of technical selling. And I think that there's a lot of people who got in between 28 and 40, and maybe even higher than that. We'll call them the weak hands who are getting shaken out right now. And I just think it's a lot of technical stuff. And I don't see a lot of the real problems that others see with respect to manipulation, all that right here. I mean, I think you make the case manipulation 50 down to say 28 on silver. I think 28 down to here, it's more likely just weak hands getting out.
All right, so Bill, I know in previous interviews I've gotten your take on what is happening in the metals right now. Did you want to just remind our viewers your take on that, and if you have any new insights?
Basically, from where we come from, this is one of the most organized market manipulations in the history of the world that started in early October. I documented every day in my work. Every single day, the gold cartel could be spotted. They set this whole thing up. You've had the open interest going way up in silver with J.P. Morgan getting shorter and shorter. They set it up with these reports with the banks and the bullion banks and central banks. SocGen came out with a bearish report. Goldman Sachs came out. President Obama happened to meet with a bunch of bankers the next day. Gold was dropped something in 36 hours, something like $230. They move it down to key technical levels. They made their attack. In typical fashion, Goldman Sachs, it sends all its people, a lot of its people, I should say, to the Treasury. Puts out a very bearish report. $200 later, 2 weeks later, they cover, which they announced today. It's setting up the historic move of a lifetime, but a lot of damage has been done here.
All right, I wanted to move to Don now. In our last panel, you were predicting silver would drop to $17.50, if I'm right. And since then, we've seen, silver drop to 22. That's about half of the drop that you were predicting. Are you still looking for silver to fall to your previous price target?
Yeah, I mean, I've had 17.5 as a target for the last 3 years, and I don't see any reason to change that. Now, I've been buying silver in the last week. I bought 3 times last week. So even if I don't get the bottom, yay for me and anybody else who's buying right now. I will be very okay if I don't get my 17.5. But if we do get to 17.5, I'll probably end up doing a video of me selling anything that's not nailed down including the shoes on my feet, and I'll just go barefoot to buy me some more silver.
All right. So, Bill, did you want to add anything else to that before we move on?
No, except salutes to Don, no matter what happened and why. Right now, with the open interest just went up 4,000 contracts the past 2 days after this big drop. This is very disturbing. And who's selling this amount of silver after our markets collapse like this? I mean, normally your open interest would really start to disappear. I've honestly never seen anything like this, and it certainly could propel. If it's Morgan doing their thing still, silver certainly could go lower before I think it streaks towards 100, which I think it's going to do.
And I know a lot of people are seeing, at least they're saying that there's a disconnect between physical prices and the spot price. Bill, are you seeing any of that? Maybe that the physical price for the physical metal is actually, the premiums are rising, or are you not seeing that right now?
We're seeing that all over the world. I mean, if you can get silver, a lot of these retail places, outlets anyway, they're all sold out. I mean, there's one report after another about the premium. So, yes, there's a disconnect between what they're doing on the paper market and the COMEX and what you can get retail products for. Now, the market's a big market. Something's being done here to get the price down because you have a silver fix every day in the morning in London, and that's when people have to meet silver buyers and sellers in more size. So something's not right. What's going on?
And I know, Don, from watching some of your recent videos, you do not believe that we're seeing a disconnect between physical and paper prices of gold and silver. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no disconnect at all. That is, with all due respect to Bill on this, I'm at Mike Maloney's website right now, and Mike Maloney, as I refer to him as the keep on stackingest of keep on stackers, he's only buying Eagles back at 23.66. He's buying back generic silver right now at 22.77. Site after site, all of these dealers are paying stupid low prices for silver right now. And if there was some sort of concern or there's some sort of supply issues or they were really worried, they'd be stepping up to the plate. And I would just offer to anybody who believes that there's a disconnect, I challenge them. Start buying your silver above spot or above retail. If you think these prices are too low, I would argue and I would beg Mike Maloney or some of these other guys, any of these retailers, on your website, put a sign that says, we're not going to sell at these prices are phony, and we're also not going to buy at these prices. We are now only buying. We're not selling anything. In fact, that ought to be their motto. There's a disconnect, guys. Silver's drying up. We're only buying, and we're going to put our money where our mouth has been, all the way down from 50. When you show me someone like Mike Maloney, who did a video last week saying how scarce silver was, and yet he can't come out of his pocket for more than $23.66 on Eagles, there ain't no disconnect and there ain't no supply shortage. And you don't got to take my word for it. Just ask people like Mike Maloney.
And I know that there's a lot of delays on orders right now. You do not see this as a shortage?
Absolutely not. It's just-in-time inventory. It happens every time prices fall. I've done numerous videos where I've talked to dealers. I've actually had conversations. I've got dealers that I personally know, and not one of them is concerned. Not one of them is panicked. In fact, if people really study retail business cycles, they would know just how happy the dealers are to have their shelves clear out. It's a dream come true for retailers who can literally sell product right now that's on their shelves in what's a perceived scarcity, fill up their shelves again with cheaper product that they're getting from the mint or from suppliers upstream that they're not paying anything more than they're paying to retail customers for, and they get to clear out their shelves and replace with cheaper inventory. It is a dream come true for retailers.
All right, so Bill, what's your take on what is being discussed right now?
Well, I think I know where Don's coming from. We're just talking to different people or get different reports. I'm saying something is going on where silver's been mobilized at a bigger level, say when it comes to contracts and the futures market and to bigger deals, that's meeting some of the demand because, again, you've got a silver fix every day. But when it comes down to the retail level, I have total different reports than he does. So I guess we agree and partly disagree.
Now, I wanted to get to Don. I know that you're saying you're buying some silver right now at these prices. Bill, are you seeing that this is a good time to buy, or are you going to wait for lower prices?
Well, I suppose it's important what your risk reward parameters are. I'd like to see how this open interest shakes out with J.P. Morgan in the next few days, and after what's occurring, to answer that. I don't think there's any rush, even though I think silver's going to $100 and much more. But in the short term, there's been such damage. I think people have time to, make a decision on what their entry point would be if they want to buy silver.
Would you like to add anything to that, Don?
I think that Bill is exactly right about that. And I also want to impress upon people that I've purchased this week knowing I don't have the bottom and very comfortable with not having the bottom. And in fact, ironically, as prices have pulled back, now I sound like the proverbial stacker. I'm not concerned about it. I'm not worried about it. I like to buy on the way down. So I'll buy some, I bought some last week. If it goes down to, say, 20, 21 or so, I'll probably pick up some more. Gets down to 18 or so, I'll probably pick up some more. And I'm not going to get the bottom. I'm not worried about it. I'm not concerned about it. It's my time horizon on this is definitely not over the next day or two. And I'm very comfortable with Bill's price targets, by the way, as well. I don't have any doubt that over the arc of time, we'll see prices much higher. What happens next day or so, I don't know.
I wanted to move now to viewers' questions. This viewer wants to know, how do you guys all feel about the traditional gold-silver ratio? And I think that's about 12 to 1 or 15 to 1. Prices aside, how low do you feel it can go if we have some type of dollar event? Bill, did you want to answer that one first?
I don't know. I would look at it from a positive standpoint, from silver's standpoint, that this is where the big move is going to be. I'm a big fan of Eric Sprott of Sprott Asset Management. And I think silver's been under specific stress because of what J.P. Morgan has done, and it's too much of an issue to get in now. But what we deal with here at my website and GATA and stuff, and that when that reverses, you'll go back to the traditional 15 to 1 ratio with gold.
John, your take?
Well, I think that for most of gold and silver's history, certainly when it was used in our money as the basis for the money in circulation, I think that the ratio was a lot more spectacularly indicative of something important when the metals were pegged as currency. Now that they're not, and they're free floating, and they're just traded on the open markets, I don't think you can look at those old metrics, and I don't know that they hold as much weight. I think also you have to accept the fact that, let's say we do go back to, let's say, a 15 to 1. Let's say it goes to 15 to 1. Well, if that happens, you could achieve that by having gold prices drop precipitously, or silver prices rise, or gold drop and silver drop, and just silver drop less. Or they could both rise and silver could rise at a higher clip. So I don't think it's such a clear-cut deal that you get to that ratio and either gold is much higher or silver is much higher. I think there are a lot of ways to get there, and I don't really concern myself with that ratio.
I wanted to get your take on this next viewer's question from Joe. When the time comes, how will we sell our precious metals? Selling it to the average Joe for dollars, exchanging it for a new currency, or is there another method?
Is this person asking about the apocalypse situation where we're all Mad Maxing it, or what do you gauge it with that question?
I'm not 100% sure. I guess whatever you think is going to happen, I guess you could answer it in that perspective.
Well, I've said something for years, and that is whatever the currency is they come out with. There was talk of the Amero at one time, and I guess some people still think that might happen. My take is this: whatever they're going to use in Rome, you better make sure you have a lot of it. So if the currency is going to be some sort of worthless, junky fiat, and that's what you can exchange into to buy your goods and services, and if your gold and silver will get you a lot of that junky fiat and buy you a house and a car and whatever you need and pay for your kids' school and their braces and all that, you might want to make sure you got a lot of it. It doesn't mean I have to like it, but it means that you might want to have some of it when the time comes. And so if you're going to be exchanging your gold and silver, whatever the currency is, you hope, of course, your currency rises in value quickly before the reset into the new currency takes place. So that's in the non-Mad Max scenario. But in the Mad Max scenario, where people are, like I said, Mad Maxing it, I don't know that gold and silver do you a lot of good, because a lot of the doom and gloom scenarios make you a target if you're walking around with a satchel full of gold doubloons. So I just think that as long as society stays right where we're at right now, you have plenty of ways to exchange your gold and silver. And if we go the doom and gloom route, I think it's bad for everybody. And I don't want to make a comment on it because, frankly, I think you'd rather have food and water in that example.
Bill, your take?
That makes sense to me. I mean, I can leave it at that. I mean, I think Don put it well.
I wanted to turn our focus now to inflation and how it's affecting our economy. I read this CNN article the other day, and I find it kind of funny how the Fed measures inflation taking food and energy out. I think it's kind of bogus, but, quote, inflation that's too low could be a bad sign for the U.S. economy, and some Federal Reserve officials are starting to get concerned. Speaking to reporters on Wednesday, St. Louis Fed President James Bullard pointed to the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, personal consumption expenditures minus food and energy, which recently has shown that prices are up 1.3% over a year ago. So I think it's kind of, like I said, I think the inflation number that the Fed puts out there is kind of bogus, but what is your take on that? Do you see that we're seeing low inflation now and it could be a danger to the economy, or do you see us going into deflation, high inflation? What's your take, Don?
Well, first of all, those government numbers are complete bullshit. So I don't know. I don't know who follows that stuff or why, but that's pretty hilarious. Of course, coming from CNN, maybe it makes sense. Secondly, the inflation to come will be mind-boggling to people. I just don't think people really understand that once the velocity of money picks up, and I've talked about Dow 80,000. I've talked about gold at 8,000 and silver at 800. And who knows what the actual numbers are going to be, but you get my point here that somewhere down the road, this inflation thing isn't going to be 1.3%. It's total nonsense, it's garbage, and the numbers are completely ridiculous and phony. They always have been, certainly within my lifetime for the last 45 years. So inflation's on the way. And by the way, newsflash, it is actually here. It's sopped up with all the social programs and the food stamps and the welfare. The fact that it takes more money out of your pocket to pay for your neighbor's groceries. There's so many reasons why. Elijah, I just apologize if I sound like I'm laughing at this question, but it's just pathetic. It's not even a question really worth answering. I hope Bill agrees with me on that.
And I totally agree that the government numbers of inflation are completely bogus. But I guess, Bill, where do you see inflation in the future? Do you see deflation first, high inflation? What's your take?
Well, obviously, I agree on the numbers. I would take it from our standpoint. I think we discussed this before. We're in a no-solution environment. They are going to be printing the money. One of the reasons that they orchestrated this gold takedown and silver with it, because they're allied, is there's no other answers. And they want gold off the radar screen because it's a barometer of U.S. financial market health. It's been that way for a long time. And every time gold goes up, what do people scream about? Too much inflation. It's bad for the dollar. Crisis. Bad policies. It goes down. Now they're clear to ratchet it up again. All of a sudden, there's the talk about quantitative easing ending is all disappearing. Oh, what a coincidence! And I think it's about the economy's not really doing that much. They're going to kick it into higher gear, and now they've got gold where they want it. They don't have to worry about what people are going to say about the inflation issue, at least until it's too late.
And by the way, Bill is exactly right about that. In terms of too late, by the time they start printing the actual inflation numbers that people will feel, it will be too late. But by the time they're raising interest rates to, quote, slow down inflation, it will already have presented itself in ways that we don't even understand right now. So and Elijah, if I sound flip with respect to your question, I just can't believe thinking adults actually think that we don't have inflation or that it won't happen. It boggles my mind the way people believe what the mainstream media says about inflation.
Turning our focus back to the precious metals, before we let you guys go, for the people who are kind of demoralized right now, who bought in the 30s and 40s, I know I just see this as a buying opportunity. But I guess starting with Bill, what is your advice for them?
Well, you probably know what I'm going to say. I mean, to hang in there, and it's what Don's talking about is coming, and this is what darkest before the dawn. I mean, where we come from, the gold cartel army struck. This was well planned out, well rehearsed, sort of like the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. That was in the making, and they struck. The bombs went off, and now the dust has to clear and smoke go away. And as this, I don't know if we're at or near the bottom, but it shouldn't be too far away. And then we're going to have an historic move coming. I'm really concerned about the silver thing because I've been talking about it, what I do for a long time about the open interest, and it's been the one indicator of what was coming for gold on a daily basis and now on a big picture basis because Morgan's behind it. So it's really going to be interesting to me to see how this plays out in the next week or two. But when it's done, and I don't think we're too far off, then it's a time for people to be doing what Don's doing, and that's buying on the way down here or holding what you have.
Don, your take?
My friend Woody O'Brien said recently he thought it was too late to sell and too early to buy. And I don't know that I disagree with that. I think that if you look at the volume and what happened in 2011, there was an historic amount of silver bought in that time period, and also a lot of the numbers touted by people in the stacking community about how many people have been buying silver. Well, it's true. I mean, silver sales over the last 3 years have been astounding, and silver sales in January and February, March of this year were also astounding. And so as sales have been higher and production has been higher, there are absolutely more people underwater. Now, if your time horizon is the next week to month or even for the next year or so, I mean, you might be looking at prices that languish. But over the arc of time, I just can't imagine a scenario where 10, 20 years from now, our kids aren't happy we had some. In the middle, where's it go? I don't know. But listen, I've bought a lot wackier stuff than silver at 24 to 28. There's a lot of dumb crap, plastic junk I got floating around my house. And if people would just sit down and look around them at all the junk they've got, everything from the stupid downloads and the Netflixes and the cables and the ringtones and all the junk you got, and look at your silver. Are you really that bummed out that you have something that's got real value? If you are, then you shouldn't be in this game in the first place. If you're not bummed out, then in my opinion, talk to me 5 years from now. That's my opinion.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it with that. Do you guys want to share with the viewers where they can find you on the internet? And I guess we can start with Bill.
Yeah, it's La Metropole Cafe, LaMetropoleCafe.com, and people can sign up for a 2-week free trial to see if they're interested.
John, where can people find you?
I want to add something about Bill's site. If you're looking for content, I've not seen a site with more consistent content than what Bill's site is putting out. So I would just say, if you want to know more about what Bill does, of course, GATA.org, but also La Metropole Cafe. Bill, I got to tip my hat. You do a great job of getting stuff out every day, and you keep keeping people educated, and it's a great site.
Thanks, Don.
With respect to my stuff, I don't know. Then go to my YouTube channel, Day Trade Show, youtube.com/Day Trade Show. That's fine.
All right. Once again, Don Harrold and Bill Murphy, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, EJ.
Thanks, Elijah. Appreciate it.
Thanks everyone for watching, and make sure to check out and subscribe to Unconventional Finance on YouTube, and also my new channel, Finance and Liberty, where you can find some of the best financial interviews and videos posted daily.